Hello, everybody. We've invited some people to our program here, so we'll see if they come. And this is kind of a new thing that Facebook is doing, it looks like. I didn't notice it before. We invite people. So anyway, I'd just like to share on this particular page we're doing here, why I'm inspired to do this, why I'm inspired. Well, basically, I've always been inspired by Jesus and Krishna. My first part of my journey in life was with Jesus in the early 70s. I had some spiritual experiences even before connecting with Jesus Christ through the New Testament, Book of John. And I had one out-of-the-body experience, and it came because of, basically before that I did some like LSD, quite a bit of it. At that time in the early 70s, people were experimenting with these things, so it was quite in vogue back then. And I wasn't into drugs per se, but I just, was experimenting like a lot of the other people. And I had one bad experience which caused some kind of psychic problems. I felt these new energies kind of moving in my body, and later found out that they call it the Kundalini awakening. It kind of started that awakening. Anyway, it was a very roller coaster ride for a couple of years, and then I met some people. Matter of fact, that's when I started to turn. I don't know why this ends up being into a biography of what I'm doing. Sorry about that. Maybe it's meant to be, because people have asked me, to do something like that. So I'll just keep rolling with it. So anyway, that's how things go here sometimes. So yeah. So anyway, I was going through a couple of years of very kind of a dark night of the soul. And I wasn't a spiritual person at all. I wasn't even interested. I was just just a young guy, interested in what most young people are doing. And then I have this total change in my life. Anyway, it was a very dark period. I felt very fearful and paranoid and all kinds of weird things. And then I started to turn my life over to God. I just said, nobody could help me, by the way. I went to doctors and psychiatrists, and nobody could figure out what was wrong. Nobody knew. Nobody understood this. And at that point, I turned my life over to God and to help me, because nobody could help me. It's like, okay, isn't that funny? How you usually show up, it's like the Lord's there in the very end, it's like He's like when you're really destitute. No wonder, it's not a wonder why it says He's the shelter of the helpless and the hopeless. That was me, and boom. And as soon as I started to turn I didn't know who Jesus was or God. I just said, if there is a God, man, please help me. Please, I need it. And as soon as I did that, miracles started to happen in my life. It's like I used to see these things where they were like balls of light. Right before I'd fall asleep at night after that, this ball lightning, they call it actually ball lightning. I started to study up on a little bit. I sort of ran across information, and they call it ball lightning, and it's kind of to do with healing and masters coming in. And so anyway, I used to, right before I'd fall asleep, this balls of light would just come in and hit my body, and it'd go, phew, This is when I started to turn my life over. I didn't know anything about Jesus, just balls of light would come in like this. And then I got led to a bookstore, a book in the bookstore called The Kundalini Awakening by this Gopal Krishna or something, Gopi Krishna or something. And I started reading the book, and it was very similar symptoms, and he had a similar thing happen to him when he was meditating for 20 years, and then he had this Kundalini awakening, and it started to go up even wrong channels. And it started to cause this kind of a paranoia and fear, stuff like that. And anyway, he got it to go right, and then he had an expansion of consciousness. Okay? It changed his whole life. And so, funny thing is, I thought, man, I could relate to that. And right after that, person just out of nowhere moves in to right below where the apartment where I was living with my parents. They were kind of freaked out by my, stuff. They were trying to help me too. They couldn't help. Nobody could help, except the Lord. He was started to help already, without anything from the unseen. So anyway, this guy moves in and starts to open up a metaphysical bookstore. And in the bookstore, he has all these metaphysical books. And then I come up to him and I tell him my problem. I said, I feel these energies moving in my body, and it makes me really fearful. I feel like right before I fall asleep, this energy starts rising up inside my body, up, and it gets into my head here. It's like a powerful rushing river going up to here, and it starts grinding. It starts grinding. And he said, oh yeah, that's a Kundalini awakening, and it's your chakra, and the crown chakra is blocked, so it can't. The energy wants to come out, can't come out. So if you want, you can attend one of our meetings tonight. I think it was the same day. Come to our meeting, and we open these chakras. But he said, I want to warn you. This is like untested territory. I mean, you do this at your own risk. It's very powerful, and there could be, who knows what can happen. I was desperate, so I said, no, I'll go for it, man. I'll do it. So anyway, I go into this meeting, and he's sitting there in a lotus posture. Oh, at first he showed me these pictures of his guru. His guru, and they didn't have Photoshop back then. His guru was drawing in these lightning bolts. They're coming down in his meditation. He's sitting there, and lightning is just. It looked real, So anyway, he's sitting there at that night, and there are a few other people around. Matter of fact, somebody else I knew from somewhere else was there, but I didn't know he went there, and he was there. And so anyway, he goes into a kind of meditation, his eyes roll back, and so we're all sitting there, and all of a sudden this energy enters the first room, and it's so powerful, it knocks down this heavy bookshelf, real heavy book. Yeah, so it knocks down this heavy bookshelf, and it goes boom. And then the energy comes into the room and goes right into my body. And I started to feel these hot and cold flashes, hot and cold flashes. And where my body temperature goes really low and really high, low, like kind of like a menopause thing. Start sweating a lot and then getting real cold, up and down, up and down. Anyway, he saw this and he said, oh, something's, I don't know, maybe we should stop. And then he said, you better go, you're too sensitive. So anyway, I went home, and that night I was laying on my couch, and I felt this energy that I've always felt, just started to rush up my front part of my body again, up there, and I thought, here we go again. Oh no, it's going to sit and grind in my head, But anyway, I felt like I was dying because it was coming up, and then got up into the head area, and then I felt like I'm dying. This is my death, And I just said, well, whatever. I just surrendered at that point, and this energy came out the top of my head, and then it's like who I identified with as the self went out with it, my identity, and it was like I felt exactly like I was in the body, but I just like had an out of body experience. Felt like I was carried out of the body actually, and then I saw this arrow piercing, arcing across the sky with these beautiful colors, not of this world, almost psychedelic actually, very, very. Like you would see on an LSD experience. Just very, very beautiful. And an arrow arcing across the sky. It's almost like looking at one of those pinball machines, going boop, 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 and then it hit a heart, and the heart splattered. Okay? And then after seeing that, I was brought back into the body, and then this opened up here. It's like there was like they call it the pineal gland, and it opened just like a TV camera opened, and I could see where I was out there. It was like I was in like an outer space thing, and I could see out there, and I saw this being person. He looked like he was wearing white, a beard. Probably was Moses because he was carrying tablets. He was carrying tablets, and he's walking down these steps. He's walking down these steps, kind of up there in the air. I'm just kind of looking out there, and he's there walking down the steps, and radiating this green, beautiful green aura. Like a color like this back here, green, but only beautiful, otherworldly colors. Just beautiful, translucent. Amazing. And green, later on, I understood is for healing. It means it's something to do with healing. So it's not a wonder why he's radiating that. So anyway, I'm looking in there, and then I'm also feeling on my head, it was like thousands of needles were just, because it was the opening of this crown chakra. And that's probably why I've got this kind of unusual ability. Well, anyway, we'll get into that. That's another thing. But anyway, this crown opened, and it felt like somebody literally. That's where I understood. I said, "Oh, that's the crown of thorns that Jesus was talking about." These stories are also teachings of what happens when you enter into higher consciousness. When the crown chakra is open, it was literally like thousands of needles were stuck on my head. Thousands of needles. You take that crown, put it right there, and it was painful. But I was so excited, and inside just, oh my God, I had a vision, amazing vision, And I opened my eyes at that point because I was like, I wish I would have just like kept them closed and just kept them, because I kind of it was so exciting to have such an amazing experience, out of the body experience. So it was amazing, and after that. I felt healed. I didn't have any problems at all. It was this Kundalini just needed me to be realigned right. And it was a kind of a similar thing with this Gopal Krishna, who wrote the book. It got aligned right, and then he was in this expanded consciousness. See? So, and then, and basically that's the basis of what I'm teaching here, and how I'm actually teaching is because of a lot of these awakenings, and where it has brought me to this day, and it's bringing forth a knowledge, a truth that is, you can't touch it, man. It's so amazing. It's so amazing and so deep that even great scholars, if they're not purified enough or called, they can't understand it. They can't understand it. It's only who the Lord allows to understand these things. So anyway, that's one. We can go more into that. Basically why we're doing a lot of stuff we're doing here. A second here. Oh yeah. Yeah. So anyway, after that, I felt like healed. No more problems. I was like healed of all this paranoia, fear, anxiety. I had anxiety attacks every night. And I just all gone, finished, And then a couple years later, I had another awakening. And I was at the time going to a metaphysical church, because I always liked Jesus. Jesus was, after that, after that, I started getting attracted to Jesus, and I went to a church that was talking about Jesus Christ. It was a metaphysical church. They had Jesus and metaphysics together. And I really loved the singing. At night, every Thursday and Sunday, I remember, it was so beautiful. They sang these beautiful songs. And a lot of it was like from this movie that I also liked at the time, Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. and they would sing songs of like that and integrate with Jesus. It was so amazing. I felt so much love. Matter of fact, in 1980, this was in about 73, 74, something like this. Later on in 1980, when I got with Krishna, I made a connection there. I remember I used to lament. I said, God, how come I don't feel the same spirit of Jesus? This spirit of devotion in the temples. I just, it was like, it just wasn't there. I mean, they were jumping up and down and all this stuff, but it was kind of mundane. It was like, just like a, external party or something, but, with God, Kind of like I see in India, people are kind of pious and they just go around and they see it. It's not like really a deep thing. So, anyway, I went to this church and I loved the things, and I thought to myself at that time, boy, wouldn't this be nice if every day I could have this, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to tune into God every day to feel this devotion and this love, Didn't know, and they didn't teach it at the church. Another thing, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this video, is because I learned so much over the years about how to help Christians and Vaishnavas have the spirit of devotion, the spirit of God, the true spirit of God in their lives every day. There's nothing like living with God and have God living inside you, alive and all well. It's just so wonderful, And so anyway, that's gets into why I wanted to do this web page, Jesus and Jesus Krishna in illuminated by the Bible and the Vedas, because they both really help understand the truth, the absolute eternal truth. And because, the Supreme Creator wants us to be connected. Because that's why people are not happy in the world. They don't have this connection. So back to the story. So anyway, I go to this church, and I'm thinking, God, it'd be nice and all that to have this. And anyway, I still didn't read the Bible. And then I started to get inspired to read the Bible by this poet, Caitanya-caritāmṛta, who wrote all these beautiful poems, and a lot of them about Jesus, And they weren't religious. They were actually like, he's talking kind of, it just wasn't religious. It was just really spiritual. And so anyway, I crack open a New Testament, and this was I think about a couple years after this experience I had there, the opening with this and seeing like this Moses character carrying tablets. And I open the New Testament and I start reading it. Actually, right before that, I was also kind of a little bit depressed. I was going, or a lot depressed. I go around and the world seems so empty to me. Really empty. And meaningless. Empty and meaningless was a good word to describe it. I was on the buses and the trains, and I see people commuting to work, and they're going back and forth, just like, I think, and they have this empty look on their face, like, and I thought, my God, is this what life is about? Just to live a life like this? It was horrible. I was depressed about that. I said I couldn't see any meaning to life. And it wasn't enough just to eat, sleep, and drink and be merry. And I already done all that, and that wasn't anything. My greatest happiness was going to that church on Thursday and Sunday and hearing the choir sing beautiful songs about, Jesus and the Christ and all that, And so anyway, I cracked open the New Testament. I thought, well, let me hear from this guy and what they say about Jesus. And anyway, as soon as I started reading some verses, man, I said, wow, this guy knows God. Inside I just knew. I had instant faith that Jesus really knew God and he was a Savior. I just knew it, believed it. I just believed it. I don't know why, but I certainly just believed that. right off. And you know what happened? Boom! That same energy that I felt before clicked on, and clicked on, open, and started to rise up in the body. And this time, when it got into the heart region, it exploded. It didn't go like all the way up here and then out. Here, it got into the heart region, right above actually the heart, right about here. Right about here. Between the, let's see if you can see that. Between the throat and, see, the people's heart is here, right about here. See? And exploded, and every cell in my body, and this is no joke, this is so true, remember it, I can remember but not experience every cell in my body went into what, like an orgasm. Literally, cellular orgasm. Every cell was just in an ecstasy that was unbelievable. It was like beyond words or anything. See? And so anyway, and then it subsided, and then I felt this love, this right out of that, where I said right here, started to pour out of this they call the heart chakra, the divine love. It wasn't any love I've ever known before that. It was this divine love of God, love of Christ, actually. Matter of fact, it was like, oh my, I knew what Christ experienced when he loved people. The love of God, I felt that. I mean, it's like, wow, man, he loves everybody, and he really wants, I just knew it. And so that stayed open. I was just crying constantly, day and night, practically, not all the time, but a lot. As a matter of fact, every time I think about anybody, think of my father or even mother, but it was crying, but not in a sentimental thing. They're still here, but just out of true love, or anybody. See anybody, look at it, just all this love, This went on for 24/7, just powerful. It was like a ray coming out. It hurt. This love was literally, it felt like it was burning a hole in my chest. It was so powerful. Okay. So yeah, and then I think I won't go too much into this right now because some other things happen. But anyway, about 20-something years later, 25, 30 years maybe, in 1996, I was in Sweden, was when I first started preaching, actually vocally, and Prabhupada came in a lucid dream, and Krishna came to my second disciple and gave her darshan, man, and said it was because of her guru, which I was her guru, that she was seeing him. So that was, and so at that time I also went into a church, and I saw this painting showed a painting of Jesus Christ on top of the mountain. It was a Transfiguration. He's on top of the mountain, and he's looking up. See? And he's looking up, and he's seeing Moses walking down these steps, carrying tablets. I wish I would have had the photo, and it's right there in Sweden. And I said, my God, that's the vision I had. I was like, and I understood that what that meant was the top of the mountain is the opening of the crown chakra, and also here where you could see Jesus looking up from the top of the mountain, just like I was in that thing, and he was seeing Moses carrying tablets, walking down these steps. The same friggin' thing. Can you imagine? I was like, that blew my mind. I said, my God, I knew instantly it was the vision I had. Instantly. Said, that's what I did. Yeah. So, give it a little perspective. So, okay, we got one watcher here. Yeah. So, okay, now, so these experiences happened, and then it shut off at a certain point because it was too powerful for this body to withstand. My body felt like it was vibrating at such a rate because of this intensity. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat anything. It's just too much, this divine energy pouring through. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I would just lay there in bliss. I would walk around in this union. Oh, another symptom of this, what I experienced is I knew God. I knew what one level of God. One level of God is basically He was everywhere. Literally, He was in. You know how they say He's all pervading? I experienced what that showed up. Kind of like Arjuna, when he saw the universal form, he experienced seeing something so great. And I saw the Lord's all-pervasive feature. He was everywhere. I felt He was everywhere, and I was this little spark of consciousness connected to it. But it was the Father, man. Just like Jesus said, the Father, man. See? And I got all that from that faith in that Bible. Reading that, it just opened this up, faith in Jesus. And boom, I saw the all-pervasiveness of God. It's something you just got to experience. You can kind of sort of get it in your mind. But to experience that everywhere, man. And to see yourself in relationship, that was this little, talk about how you can have any false ego after that. I mean, it's like the real God is everywhere. How do people think they're God, man? It was just everywhere, and I was definitely separate, but a part of that, man. Exactly. That's why I always love the Vedas, because it explains all these. And you could say, my God, these people also realize this thing. They explain it so nicely. Okay? Yeah. So anyway, it clicked off. It's just too powerful for this body. And then later on, I learned that certain people have experiences like this, where they have an enlightenment that lasts 2 or 3 weeks. But it is so powerful. There's no way. Yeah, great. There's no way you can sustain it. My body was literally. If there was ever would be an ascension, it would have literally burned up from the vibrating at that high rate, but then it shut off. It's like God knows how much and what to do, right to the edge and everything, and it shut off. Okay, and then a few years later, was it a few years? Yeah, say about 6 or 7 years later, 1980. 5 or 6 years later, something like that. 1980, I was just kind of like, I didn't develop any of this. I just kind of like, oh, okay, it's great. And I was young. There was nobody that I, was into. I wasn't into these born-again Christian things, the way they do it. So anyway, I didn't develop it. And then in 1980, I'm just on the beach, man. I have my trailer I was living in. I just kind of came to California. I was in Laguna Beach, and I get a book from Prabhupada, man. And so anyway, I get this book from Prabhupada, and I read just one sentence here, And again, this love awoke. And instant recognition, I said, this guy knows God too, like Jesus Christ. Instantly. And I was also instantly inspired. I said, where is the temple? I want to become a devotee. And he said, oh, it's right over there. I went over there. I said, hey, here's my trailer. Here's my money, man. I just signed over my traveler's checks. Here's my money. Here's my car, everything. And they said, great. We needed a pot washer, so they put me in washing pots, and I was blissed out. I loved it. Okay? But then I noticed I'd have these awakenings very easily. I just chant Hare Krishna and start to cry. And they didn't like this. They said, in the temple room, they said, how dare you cry in a temple room? And very angry about it, and they said, this is offensive to Krishna to cry for him. So, and it was the temple president. And it was, it was the guy they think is such a great Kirtaniya. Yeah, he is, I guess, at a certain level, one of these guys. I won't mention his name. He was temple president. They said, oh, he's such a great, Yeah, but he couldn't understand this level, It's not surprising. Look what I had to go through, to get it. how dare you cry in the temple? All right, so I stopped, immediately I started to, by associating with these types of persons, these types of, they say, devotees in progress. Well, we're all devotees in progress, but this is a certain level. And then anyway, I spent 5 years, to make a long story short, and it was a big struggle for me, because here I love the books, man, and I wanted to just relish these books, and it gave me transcendental feelings, awakening, the chanting and all that. But I was in that association. It just very quickly very quickly started to diminish more and more, until I was left like a ghost, like everybody else seemed like to me too. Kind of empty shells. People think that's life in the empty shell, Until you get this transcendental experience inside, this Spirit of God working inside you. It's like, it's empty, everything. Okay, so anyway, that's that. So we'll make this kind of like a little biography, where I'm coming from, why I'm doing this integration of Christ and Krishna. So, okay, and so after that, now this Gopal Krishna also experienced some kind of expansion in consciousness, where he was different. And so this showed up in my life because, first of all, I could chant the names of Krishna, and they actually they just talk about it in the books, but not so much talking. They just, so they say, oh, well, this path of Bhakti Yoga is about rules and regulations, and just follow the rules and jump up and down when other people are jumping up and down, and just, kind of like imitate this rules and regulation thing. Okay. But for me, in the books and in the chanting, was my first thing, like, how to develop this. Because it wasn't clear in the Bible, see, and it was clear in the Vedas, but it lacked the association, see, and so it's like, so I was, I went through 5 years of kind of like still not being clear, and there's a lot of problems. That's a whole other story. I don't want to get into a whole bunch of this now, but basically, it's the Vedas help me understand this love of God. See? And the problem with developing it there, this love of God, this level, which I found out, this is Raganuga Bhakti, and this is spontaneous devotion. See? Raganuga Bhakti is you're attracted to associating with spontaneous devotees. I was always that. Easily, just awaken spontaneously, these things. See? So, Raganuga, now that I'm teaching, is to help people enter the Raganuga phase, transitioning from Vaidhi Bhakti to Raganuga, and then into spontaneous devotion. So don't think that you're a Raganuga devotee, a spontaneous devotee, because you're here. You got to have the symptoms of that. If you're still like all over the place in your mind, erratic and all that stuff, well, hey, you're not quite there yet. You're maybe having some awakenings. See? But it just needs to settle down. See? Settle down. It's not settled. So one way to do that is like Johan was talking about that, and I was talking about it too, is that you got to make the transition. You got to be a little settled yourself. You got to follow the rules and regulations somewhat. You should chant a certain amount of rounds. If you can't do Sankirtan, like I know something like Karuna, I think you're here. If you can't do Sankirtan, sit down and do 4 or 5 rounds or something. You sit down. You see that'll help settle everything. Otherwise, you'll just be kind of all over the place and driving River, crazy. Or she'll be driving you crazy. You both should sit down and chant together. Chant some rounds, man. Do something regulated. See, kind of regulate your life. See, otherwise you're just going to be all over. You're just freaking out, and then you may even leave the path. You want to do that? Don't do that. So, and that's in the scriptures. Also, It's in the Sandarbhas or something by Jiva Goswami, making the transition. And then when you're more solidly connected, then you can really let go, more of these things, and you just focus, but you're still doing something. You're still, hey man, my mind would not be settled if I wasn't chanting these verses, or chanting Harinam, and I also chant japa. Okay? So, you'll be able to do it more spontaneously, but if your mind is all over the place, you gotta watch it. So after all of this that I've experienced, I notice when I look at the scriptures now, I'm live. Anyway, Karuna knows where that is. I'm on Jesus in the light of Vedas. In the light of the Vedas. Okay? Karuna, can you tell her where I'm live on Jesus in the light of the Vedas? I sent her the link, I think, to click on that. Okay, let's see, add members. Okay, anyway, tell her. So anyway, with this expansion now, in consciousness, now when I look at the Bible and I look at the Vedas, I can see the deeper teachings in that, the Raganuga level of teaching, see, that leads quickly to spontaneous devotion, and it's all in line with that. And so many things. So whoever comes here from either, another thing, because there are many Christians that have some ecstatic experiences, but they don't know where to go. They're also kind of like, should we go to the New Age? And they're going into New Age, and there's all these different teachers. It's confusing to a lot of Christians. They can't see how God is working and where He's working and what levels and all of that stuff. Here, if they come here, we can teach them all these things. We can share these things, because this is the gift that God has given me in this disciplic line, is to help clarify all of these things for Christians and for the Vaishnavas. Okay? And I don't know if there's another place on the planet that has such kind of clarification. So anyway, this is part of our work here. The introductory video is to say we'll be going more into this, more into the Bible, and using the light illumination of the Vedas on it, and we'll use the Bible and the New Testament and as illumination onto the principles of Vaishnavism also, which are very helpful. I was going to do that just now, but then I got into this, so we'll make that an introduction to this. And Karuna, if you can download this video also after it's done, and then upload it on both Facebook and not that site of the real teachings of the disciplic line, not that one. I think I have to either I have one or I have to make another one. Let's see. Okay, I need to stop here for a while, and I'll be back. We'll talk more about this, and Okay, Hare Krishna, and if you missed this, you can watch the replay. Make sure you join the group. Oh, and by the way, Karuna, don't just be, you gotta think relevance, man. If you're gonna upload something, make it be relevant to this, and not just all kinds of Sankirtan with your hats on. I want to, we're reaching an intelligent audience that may not just have a Sankirtan thing they're going out chanting. People that are, they don't know anything about Sankirtan, so with Jesus, and that kind of thing. So that's why I have to moderate these things, because not everybody is clear about that. Okay, Hare Krishna. A little bit tired now, I got to rest.